Hello, hockey fans, and welcome back to another episode of High Flying, the podcast made for the fans.
By the fans.
My name is Nolan. As always, I'm here with my co-host Jude.
Hello, good people of the internet.
And last time I started off the episode with an apology. It was to Calvin Pickard. Now we're going to apologize to you guys because I feel like most of this episode is going to be spent on the Vancouver Canucks and Minnesota Wild, which are two teams that probably nobody likes hearing about at this point. Minnesota, because other than Gage, who gives a fuck about Minnesota? And the Canucks, you kind of hear about it every episode, so we may be beating a drum here. However, we did have arguably the biggest trade of our lifetime happen, so we kind of have to dive into that.
I feel like we were pretty good the last two episodes though on minimizing the Canucks talk. So it's a
We
good
definitely ran
time for it to
long.
happen.
We definitely ran long last episode for sure.
Yeah, we did.
But for those who don't know, which if you
If you
listen to
don't
a
know,
hockey
man, what the
podcast and
fuck?
you don't know, yeah, Quinn Hughes going over to the Minnesota Wild in exchange for Marco Rossi, Liam Ogren, Zeev. I don't know how to pronounce Buim. Buim.
I've heard
Buim.
William, I've heard Boom, I've heard I guess actually just those two, but I'm gonna go with I've heard Boeem. I'm gonna go with Boeem.
I'm gonna call him Zeev for this podcast and we play it safe and a first round pick. That was the trade.
Yeah. What a I'll tell a quick story of where I was when this went down. So I'm sitting in my parents' living room, I guess, if you want to call it that, and we're putting up the Christmas tree. And I'm standing up with my arm extended, holding out the tree, right, maintaining a nice straight vertical existence for this tree. My mom is holding on to the stand, I guess, at the bottom, and I get a notification on my phone, and it's Elliot Friedman, and all it says is Quinn to Minnesota. And I audibly, it was like a half gasp, half scream. I was just like what the fuck? And so my mom kind of started freaking out. She's like, "What? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh my God, mom!" And she's like, "I feel bad," because she was kind of like freaking out. I guess her as a mother, her mind immediately went to more serious things. But I was like, "No, it's sports," and she was like, "Oh, okay, that's good," because I didn't want to tell her without knowing for sure. Like I hadn't been able to verify that this was the actual Elliot account because there's that like parody one out there. So it took me, I don't know, few more seconds till I finally saw the news was real. And yeah, I had to break it to the family that Quinn had been moved to Minnesota. So fell to my knees immediately. Absolute dagger through the heart when you first see that as a Canucks fan. Kieran, my brother, actually got to attend the game against Buffalo. So he saw Quinn's last game ever as Vancouver Canuck, captain of the Canucks, best player in Canucks history. Um, yeah. Anyways, I'm as far as returns go for Quinn Hughes, I am I'm very okay with how they did. Um, Given what else had been kind of put out there by either you never know if it's the teams or like trying to get Quinn or if it's the Canucks trying to put some out there being like this isn't enough. But like Detroit, you're hearing like Danielson and Casper and some other guys and I don't know New Jersey like it was like Mercer and Nemec or whatever and it was all just pretty underwhelming. So Minnesota I feel like completely came out of nowhere and as soon as I saw that Zeev Buim was part of the deal, instantly a little bit of an exhale because of this guy's pedigree and how he's thought of around the league and I'm not gonna compare him directly to Quinn Hughes, but the two games that I've seen him play for the Canucks at least, he sort of has the same mannerisms in terms of like the shiftiness on the blue line, his calmness with the puck, that sort of stuff. So once I saw he was part of the deal, I was like, okay, very good start. Marco Rossi coming back. He's been linked to the Canucks forever. Wasn't shocked at all to see him. I think he's got credible second line center potential and I mean a bit of realized potential too. He has 60 points in a season in the league. Ugrin, I, I don't know. I mean, first round pick, his numbers on at least when I went to the Elite Prospect are pretty good for most of his career. He's had a tough kind of debut, I guess you could say, in the NHL, not putting up a ton of points, but he was getting fourth line minutes in Minnesota. So you can't really expect he's still 21 years old, so I think still lots of potential there. He skates well, good on the forecheck. Hopefully he can maybe top end talent, probably a middle six winger. Um, but I do think his baseline is an NHL player, so that's good. And then the first round pick, which you're hoping the Wild lose to either Dallas or Colorado first round, and that becomes closer to a 20th overall selection than a 30th overall selection. But either way you chop it up, that's basically 4 first round picks for Quinn Hughes. Absolute dagger. It had to get to the point where the organization needed to move on from, whichever way you slice it, the first or second best player that they've ever had in terms of raw skill and talent. Sucks to see Quinn go, an absolute organizational failure that they could not build a competitive, contending team around this guy. And I wish him well. I'm glad we're doing this podcast a couple days after we had planned to, because on Monday I was still pretty raw. I probably would have said some things I regretted.
I wish we did it on Monday, just in the heat of the moment. For those who are listening and watching, it's Thursday, December 18th right now. But the raw reaction would have been cool. My reaction hasn't changed as much, and we can get to my thoughts on it in a little bit. But I'm also not a supporter of either of these teams, so I have a lot less at stake mentally and emotionally than you do.
Yeah, it has been a little tough to see the reaction on Twitter and from our good friend of the podcast, Gage, after their first few games, getting to witness Quinn Hughes and really just learning how much of a difference maker this guy is. Um, you go online and you just see them being like, this is insane. Like every single time this guy's on the ice, he's got the puck most of the shift. He just creates things. Every other star player on our team has so much more time and space now. And it's like, yeah, that hurts. It's still a bit raw. It's like, yeah, get used to it. Minnesota, this
Well,
guy is going to change your life for at least a year and a half.
and I don't remember when a top two, this may be the first time in our lifetime, or at least since we've been following hockey, that a top two defenseman in the league has been traded in their prime, right? Like, I think it's safe to say that Cale Makar is generally viewed as the best defenseman in the league. He may be like a top five defenseman of all time, but Quinn Hughes is right up there with him. And so I don't think we've ever seen a trade on the back end of this, of a player of this stature. Like the only thing that comes to mind was the Erik Karlsson trade, but even then, I'd say Erik Karlsson was up past his prime at that point. Um, or at least he wasn't as young with as much potential as Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, it could be a naive statement from me, but just trying to go through my brain and think when the last time a for a defenseman of this magnitude happened. Do you have to go back to Paul Coffey? Like, I know that's going back a ways, but I can't. Erik Karlsson's a good pull from you, but I agree he was a little bit over the hill at that point, and I don't even think in his prime, I don't think he was ever really regarded as um exceptional defensively, and I think Quinn really has turned himself into a very credible defender. Maybe it's more so because of how much he has the puck and how much they're on offense.
Well, you can say like, yeah, I think the Erik Karlsson thing, he did put up 100 points, which is kind of pretty solid. It was a minus 26 doing it, so he kind
Yeah,
of threw all defense out the window. The
he was
only
on the
other guy I can think of, sorry to ramble here, is after Chris Pronger left St. Louis. I can't remember if he left as a free agent or if he was traded, but that may be. I don't know if we can find if Ethan can find that because he left St. Louis pretty quick after he won the Hart Trophy. Last defenseman to win a
yeah,
Hart Trophy, Chris Pronger. I don't even think you were alive yet, Jude. Maybe you were one,
good pull,
but
good
that
pull.
that, that was a little bit ago.
Yeah, no, that's a good pull too. Yeah, I think everybody kind of knows it's Kale and Quinn up here, whichever way you want to slice them. Maybe Zach Werenski a little bit below them, and then everybody else in the league. I think just down way below them. And if you look at the analytics, Quinn surpasses Kale in a lot of ways in terms of expected goals, actual goals for, goals against, all that sort of stuff. Not that I value analytics over the eye test or raw numbers, but it's a tool you can use to gauge things. So it's going to be interesting to see now Quinn getting to play with some players near the caliber of what Cale Makar's had in Colorado for his whole career, because Quinn was doing this with, I mean, you could say Pedersen, but his form has, and I want to caveat this with he has been better this year. I'm not trying to slag on him, but the form has definitely dipped from a few seasons ago when he was putting up 100 points. So yeah, it's still tough to see Quinn in another jersey. He does look fantastic in that Minnesota Wild uniform. And my biggest fear about a month ago was Quinn getting traded to New Jersey, and now that is the number one thing I want on my Christmas list for 2026 is Quinn moving to New Jersey, because that means the Canucks emphatically win the trade and makes us look way better.
I think
Um,
if all those guys played together, it's somewhere outside of New Jersey. I don't think they all played. I think it's still a possibility that the three brothers played together. I can't see them all going to New Jersey, especially if Minnesota's winning. Because two things. One, Ethan just brought up the Chris Pronger trade super quick. So it's Joffrey Lupul, um, two firsts and a second. One of those firsts got turned into Jordan Everly, which was pretty solid, and Ladislav Schmid was thrown in there as well. So that was from Edmonton to Anaheim, and obviously ended up winning a cup with Anaheim. So I would say this is probably the biggest trade since the Edmonton Anaheim Chris Pronger trade, if not on equal par with that. The only difference is um, Chris Pronger has a heart. But I want to get back to something that you said, where you said it's Cale Makar and like Quinn Hughes in the top tier, and then maybe like Zach Werenski a little bit below. And I feel like oftentimes throughout hockey, it's a fluctuation. Like Zach Werenski, we've only really talked about in that category in the past 2 years. It was Eric Carlson for a bit. It was Roman Yossi for a bit. John Carlson had a couple years where he was in that top tier. One thing that I think is a little bit understated is the consistency of both Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. They're in that conversation every single year. Like at the beginning of the season, when you're predicting your Norris winners, you already have two of the three top three spots locked up at the beginning of every single season. So I just want to give them a quick shout. Not that they need it from me, but on the level of consistency that they perform at an all-time elite level with.
yeah, two unbelievable players. We're definitely lucky to be able to get to see most of their careers. I guess I'll be seeing a lot less of Quinn these days. But all in all, it was a pleasure to have Quinn on the Canucks and be able to watch him. I definitely the last month and a half was kind of soaking it in and watching every Canucks game, knowing that you gotta you gotta appreciate this level of dominance and talent while he's here. I will say the last maybe 2 weeks he was on the team, it was a little tough to watch the games because everybody knew what was coming, and it had kind of gotten to the point where vibes were so low. He was kind of not to slight Quinn at all, but there were some plays where if there was a puck he could hold at the line on the power play, he maybe wasn't quite giving it his all. And situations like that where you could just tell it had sort of reached a boiling point. A guy of his talent, his skill doesn't want to be on a 32nd place team in the league, which is fair. And
What do you think the problem is? Because like there's other teams that perpetually suck, right? And like no offense, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Vancouver's a shitty team most years, right? Like they had a stretch of brilliance in the 2010s. They obviously made it to a cup final. Most years Vancouver's not a good team. And there's a lot of other teams like that. And so I'm going to throw out Buffalo just as an example. Buffalo's obviously had it a lot worse than Vancouver in the sense that they're not making the playoffs. But you don't hear Rasmus Dahlin being like, I need to get out of Buffalo. Whereas it seems like people don't want to play in Vancouver. And do you think that's just because, in your semi-professional opinion, like it's one thing to be on a bad team, but I look at it and go, Vancouver's a bad team without a direction. And maybe that's what it is. And that's the problem with the culture is that the players, nobody wants to lose. They're all professional athletes, they're all competitive. But there's something to be said if you're losing, but you're trending in the right direction or there's a plan. And I feel like Vancouver has been a bit of a fish lost at sea as an organization. And that's kind of affected the culture of the players who come here.
you brought up a really good point. It's one thing to lose intentionally. right? It's one thing to be losing, but you're able to see that the organization is accumulating assets, getting younger, and losing with a purpose. You never want to say like teams tank for too long, but it's one thing to lose with a purpose. It's another thing to try and be competitive every year and still manage to find yourself out of the playoffs. Not out of the playoffs enough that you're getting good draft picks and being um, smart about it and accumulating those really top end first round players, but missing the playoffs by 6 points, 8 points, 7 points. Fielding a roster where the only goal really is just to make the playoffs and get a bit of playoff revenue. And I think that has been what's plagued the Canucks for really ever since Mike Gillis has been gone, is that ownership has been absolutely unwilling to commit to tearing it down enough that you could acquire the pieces necessary to then build yourself back up. And from, I believe it was 2014 and 2019, the Canucks picked in the top 10 5 times, right? Which you look at that and you go, wow, I mean, that's pretty good. You should be able to garner some players that are going to make a difference. And they did, but none of that was in the top five. Or sorry,
There's
Patterson was fifth. Patterson was fifth. But other than him, nothing higher than that. And they were not able to whatsoever build a supporting cast around those guys. Like I cannot believe at one point we had Miller, Horvat, and Pedersen down the middle, Quinn Hughes on the back end, and Demko and net. You're looking at that a couple years ago. That's awesome. You got building blocks. That's a great start. And at every turn, just when it seemed like maybe the Canucks are finally in a place that you could actually turn things around and capitalize on the assets that you've gained. I mean, they lucked out so hard getting Quinn at 7. Quinn Hughes, seventh overall pick. That Jim Benning, I mean, that
that
probably
that
earned him a few extra years as general manager, unfortunately.
that makes
But
up for the Ole Levy pick,
it,
not taking Matty Tkachuk. That's the trade-off.
yeah,
You miss Kachuk, but you get Quinn Hughes.
don't remind me about that. That was horrifying. But yeah, I guess that's really what it comes down to for me is it's one thing to be bad intentionally, it's another thing to be bad when you're trying to be competitive and going forward.
Like I I don't know really where to point the finger for the Vancouver Canucks. Because, and the reason I say that is like, yeah, I look at Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford, of course, but they had a massive mess to clean up that Jim Benning left behind. And and I kind of go, they can maybe they're doing the best they can, right? Like they didn't know going into the situation that Pedersen and Miller would try and kill each other. They didn't know that 100-point PD would turn into 30-point PD, you know. They didn't know that Demko would be dealing with all these injuries and surgeries and rehabbing his knee. Um, so, like, part of me wants to say they signed up to a really shitty situation and they're doing the best they can with the pieces they have. And we'll get to my thoughts on the return for Quinn Hughes in a second, but I did think it was a good return. And you also look at a guy like Rutherford, who's won with Carolina and he's won with Pittsburgh. So clearly he knows what it takes to win. But at the same time, it's like I don't even know what the next steps are at this point. And if you're not just selling the farm, minus Brock, maybe. The other thing, like obviously you got to keep some veterans there, right? Like you can't have the blind leading the blind. And I actually saw this is they're talking about the U.S. men's national team and how they missed the Olympics in 2018 for soccer, and I'm like, or not the Olympics, the World Cup in 2018 for soccer, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So like in Vancouver's case, you can't just have a bunch of young guys because then you don't have the experience, you don't have that leadership. So like Brock just signed a new deal. He obviously wants to stay. Marcus Pedersen coming from playing with Sidney Crosby, he's probably a good veteran to have. But like aside from maybe those two guys, is there a direction you can go with this team other than just sell the farm and start from scratch?
I don't think so. I think they didn't want to use the word rebuild before Quinn Hughes was gone because that kind of diminishes your leverage slightly or just kind of signals to everybody that that's what's going to happen. But now that he's gone, I think there's no way they can fool themselves into believing that this is a quick fix. There's no more talk of oh, if you just get, a couple more guys, if you just get that one more like, elite player, it'll put you over the top. I don't think anybody could be fooled into believing that's the case. And you bring up Rutherford and Alvin having a big mess to clean up when they replaced Benning. I think they started off doing with a. I think they started well, but they rushed that 23-24 season. That season where they went to the second round. I think they smelled immediate success. They could smell the playoffs. The team was still poised, I think, and in a good position to potentially build on that. But once they traded for Lindholm and Zadorov and Roenick before them, I think they sort of rushed the process a bit. Um, in letting go of Zadorov and Lindholm that offseason, that's I think what the fatal mistake was. One, because they were just really good players, even though Lindholm wasn't producing at a point pace that you maybe would have liked. He was still a ridiculously good defensive centerman. The center depth was still amazing. And Zadorov was insane for the locker room. He brought that grit, that toughness. And once those guys left, they really didn't replace him with anybody that offseason. And I think the expectations going into the 24-25 season, combined with the lack of talent that had been brought in to replace some of those acquisitions of the year prior, that spelled the downfall of the team. And you say that they weren't aware of the Miller Patterson thing. I'm not sure if you saw this, but Brad Richardson said on Shane O'Brien's podcast a while ago, I can't remember exactly how long, but he said even when he was on the Canucks, when Patterson he was either a rookie or in his second year, he was only there for the last 10 or 15 games of the season. He said on Shane O'Brien's podcast that he had a conversation with JT and he said, dude, you got to lay off this kid. Like the tough guy, figure it out, like shut up and just do your job thing is not working with this kid. He's a bit more of he's not necessarily one that takes well to the tough love style of coaching or leadership. So I think this has been brewing for a really long time, and they were sort of neglecting it, and that is what led to the giant blow up.
Okay, let me respond to that here for a second, my friend. Um, you like Led Zeppelin, right?
Of course, I'm a man of taste.
Okay, so we're gonna call this Vancouver era because I feel like the Benning and the Alvin era kind of blend in together since the players cross paths under both tenures of management. So we're gonna call it the Led Zeppelin era of Vancouver, if you will, or the John Paul Jones, the JPJ era. We got Jim, Patrick, and Jim. Okay, so in this Led Zeppelin era of Vancouver. True, I did see the Brad Richardson thing, and the thing with that though is maybe Miller didn't let up on him. I mean, clearly he didn't, but Pedersen was still able to perform under that. So it wasn't too. I don't know what level it was in. I wasn't in the locker room, but Pedersen was able to perform despite that, and something happened where he kind of fell off a cliff. The other thing though is like in knowing that, if you know that it's a problem as a general manager, obviously hindsight's 2020. Why are you moving on from Bo Horvat then? Because let's be honest, looking at it right now, out of the three guys, I want Bo Horvat on my team. And Bo Horvat's on the team they're playing tomorrow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In hindsight, Horvat was definitely the guy to keep. I think him and Pedersen got along a lot better than Miller and Pedersen. It kind of got tough because during that year, Miller was really popping off and playing really, really well. And they had originally committed to Horvat. They gave him a pretty significant deal.
Right, but then trade Miller because his value's high,
I
right?
agree.
So like
I
I think what this comes down to is poor asset management.
very much so. And just quick, I think it's insane you compared the Canucks to Led Zeppelin, one of the top three greatest rock and roll bands in the history of Earth.
Only because of the initials. Only because of the initials. What a
Okay,
sick name.
fair enough.
John Paul Jones, one of that is the best bass guitar name in rock and roll history. So I'm only comparing them because of the initials, not anything to do with success, because obviously they are on opposite ends of that spectrum.
I was kind of expecting that you were going to bring up the Hindenburg thing, like the blimp catching on fire and going down. I kind of thought that's what you were going to allude to with this Canucks team because that is exactly what has happened. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Brutal asset management for the most part, especially in the Benning era, and Benning saddled this team with some contracts that I don't know if any other team in the league would have handed out 4-year deals to Antoine Roussel and Jay Beagle in the same offseason and then proceeded to double down on trading first round pick for OEL at 8 million and Connor Garland, which obviously Garland's a good player, but OEL, we're still dealing with that cap hit for the buyout for a couple seasons. So
Well, wasn't that part of the Louis Eriksson trade?
it was. And
So the
all
problem
three
was
of those
Louis
guys.
Eriksson.
Well, all three of those guys. So it was Beagle, Roussel, and Erickson for
Right.
OEL and Connor Garland, and it was really just Jim Benning's last ditch attempt to try and retain his job, which is never what you want to see. I think as a manager, even if you know you're getting fired, you want to try and leave the organization in a
I don't
nice.
mind that. I don't mind that trade though. That's probably one of his better trades. The contracts were terrible. The contracts that led to having to have that trade be made were brutal. I don't
Yeah,
mind the actual trade.
I mean, trading for Ekman Larson at that stage and taking on 7 million for him, ridiculous. They also gave up a first round pick in that deal, which turned into Dylan Gunther, so wouldn't mind having him.
Forgot about the first round pick. I now mind that trade. I forgot about the
Yeah,
first round
exactly.
pick. Yeah.
If it was
Forgot
just the
about that.
players, if it was just the players, I mean, hey, whatever. And the thing
Yeah.
is, we were out of those deals. It was 1 year left for all three of those guys, Louis Erickson, and I'll admit at the time, I was like, holy shit, awesome. Anything to not have to watch Louis Erickson play hockey for the Canucks anymore. But you traded 1 more year of brutal contracts for like 6 more years of brutal contracts with OEL, which proceeded to be a buyout. And now we're paying him to not play for us. We're paying him 4 million to not play for us, which with the cap going up, the impact will be lessened. But still, to your point, just terrible asset management all over the board, really ever since Mike Gillis left in the important spots. Should have kept Horvat. I mean, there's a million things you can point to how we are in the position that we're in at the moment. But as a Canucks fan, I'm just happy right now that they're finally at least using the word rebuild, even if it's lightly. And going forward, we are now going to be. Now, I say this, they could turn around and trade the first round pick we got from the Wild tomorrow for some fucking middling player that's not going to help us. But seeing as it hasn't happened yet, it seems as though we're finally, for the first time in my life, going to be intentionally bad, which will then turn into hopefully massive difference making players coming through the draft, which is really the only way that you can build a winner in this salary cap era and in this league. So, all in
Imagine.
all, we didn't really get your thoughts on the trade, the return as
Yeah.
a non-biased individual.
Yeah. I was saving that. I just want to say, like, imagine because they essentially got four first round picks out of this trade, right? And plus they have their own this year, and they have actually the potential to have a really good decor if they don't screw it up. Like you got DPD, who's looked really solid, very comfortable playing with Wallinder. He's looked really good. I've been impressed by him so far. Zeev seems like an absolute stud with Vancouver. It's only been 2 games. I have not watched him the rest of the year because I don't give a fuck about Minnesota, so I've only seen 2 games of Zeev. Um, we got Mancini down the pipe, friend of the show, Victor Mancini, who's going to come on one day. They have the potential to have a really good decor still if they don't screw it up. My take on the trade, I think Vancouver got the best return possible that they could have got for this. Because the earlier they did this, and I said this on the podcast, I said the sooner you do it, the more leverage you have. Because the closer it gets to the deadline, the longer you draw this out, the more and more the ball is in the other team's court. The trade I really liked was to to Detroit for Casper, Sandine Pellica, a first, and then a conditional first, depending on re-signing and where Quinn ends up with that. Was that an actual trade that was discussed and on the table? I have no clue. That was just floated around on the internet. I think this is a good return. You got three guys, all former first round picks. You got Zeev, who's going to be a top pair defenseman. Is he going to be Quinn Hughes? No, but I think it's a little unfair to compare him to that. But he can still be an all-star defenseman for you. His skating looked really good in 2 games. His stick work looked really good. He got a goal. He got an assist. Like I know it's also a really small sample size, so like who knows how it's going to play out. But all the evidence suggests that he's going to be a top pair defenseman throughout his career. Marco Rossi, you mentioned it. He's had a 60-point season. Is that his ceiling? Maybe, but like I think he's a guy who can put up 60 to 50 points on a regular basis for you, and that's kind of what they need because the biggest problem for Vancouver going into the season, I think, was their center depth. And then you got Liam Ogren, who has more points in 2 games than David Kampf has all year. So that's basically all that needs to say about the Vancouver Canucks. So all in all, I think this is really good for Vancouver. You look on the Minnesota side of things, they have a little bit of an older decor. Brodin's getting up there, Spurgeon's getting up there. They got Zach Bogosian, had to deal with a few injuries. They also had a few young guys thrown in there, Zeev being one of them. Um, Damon Hunt is playing out there. They obviously got Brock Faber. The thing I noticed that with Minnesota is that they really struggle generating offense outside of basically 3 or 4 guys. Like they kind of look very Winnipeg-y to me in the sense like their top line is firing, right? Like Kaprizov is an elite forward, easily a top 5 winger in the league, maybe a top 5 skill guy in the league. He looked really good all season playing with Danila Yurov and Matt Zuccarello. That line has a lot of chemistry. Those guys are firing it in the net. Good for them. You drop down to their second line. Eriksson Ek is a bit more of a defensive-minded center. He's never been the most offensively inclined guy in the world, but Matt Boldy is still an elite talent. He's able to put up points. That's awesome. They don't really have much else other than that. Like their power play sucks. It's terrible. Like Brock Faber hardly gets any top line power play time. It was Zeev on their top power play. And I don't actually know the numbers to be honest, but just like watching them, I remember watching them last playoffs. It was Zeev's first NHL games, and they had Zeev on the top line power play because Brock Faber looked like he didn't know how to hold a stick properly. And
That
I
was
think he's,
hilarious to me.
yeah, I think he's
Walks
having
into
a
the NHL, immediate first line power play. That's so funny to me.
Yeah, and first of all, I guess that tells you another thing about the Canucks return is that they're getting a player with the capacity to handle big responsibility in big minutes. Um, and the other thing I'll say is that is Brock Faber has looked way better this year than he did in last year's playoffs, and he's slowly turning it around. But this is still a team that had trouble generating offense. Well, guess who's arguably the second best offensive generating defenseman in the league, Quinn Hughes, and you just got him on your team. He's already playing top line power play minutes. He's also got a goal and an assist with the Wild. Um, in his first 2 games he played in Minnesota, this could just be a fluke, but they outscored their opponents 12-1.
I don't
So,
think it's a fluke. I don't think it's a fluke that like Quinn is so life-changing to your whole team. You're gonna have the puck so much more. All those guys you mentioned are gonna have ridiculous amounts of space now because Quinn Hughes draws so much attention, rightfully so. And I agree with you. The depth is what's still the question mark about the Wild. If they're really going to compete against Colorado and Dallas, which I think everybody consider the 2 juggernauts in that division, they're going to need to fill out the bottom to middle part of the
you need a
forward group.
you need a center. You need a center.
Yeah.
And luckily, their centers haven't been injured. Sorry to cut you off there. Their centers haven't been injured except Marco Rossi. He just came back off of um, IR to play for Vancouver. But right now, they have Europe top line, awesome. Eriksson Ek second line. And then they have Nico Sturm and Ryan Hartman, but they have nothing up the pipe. Their prospect pool is so shallow right now. One injury in the playoffs, and you're in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So
Sorry, I just want to throw that in
no,
there.
no, all good. Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think now it's really up to Billy Guerin to try and find a way. And I don't know if they can do it this season because they sort of just gave up all of their best assets for Quinn. But it's going to be a challenge for them trying to fill out the rest of the forward group to really be able to compete with those other two teams. The one thing you mentioned that they have going for them, the decor is ridiculous. If everybody can get healthy at the same time, like that, the left side, Quinn Hughes, Brodeen, the right side, you got Spurgeon, you got Faber. I mean, that top four rivals any other in the league. They've had the best goalie tandem in the league so far this season with Wallstedt and Gustafsson. That can definitely be a difference maker in the playoffs if you get goalied. But going
Yeah,
forward, yeah, their focus should now certainly be on, and maybe it takes moving one of those guys that really makes your decor
they don't
truly
have
elite.
depth though, and like that's the thing. It's like if you move a defenseman for a center, then you have the same problem, but just with your defenseman.
I
Like
think
you,
either way you look at it, though, if you're trading like say a Brodeen and you've brought in Quinn, that sort of minimizes the impact on the
yeah,
decor.
that's true. I'm just thinking like playoffs. Like what team has won a cup without running like eight D-men that can stand in there? There's always fatigue and injuries if you're going to win a cup. Like I think on paper, they're really well laid out, but when it comes to actually grinding through the playoffs, and this is a team that doesn't have a lot of experience making it far in the playoffs. Like they're usually a first round exit, and like yeah, you add Quinn, who's got a lot of skill, but he doesn't have playoff experience either. Like he's got, was it one season of it? They've made the playoffs under with Quinn.
If you if you count the bubble, then too, but 1.5, we'll say.
Yeah, so I guess Nashville, and then what they lose to Vegas in the bubble or something.
They
I
did
can't
lose
remember.
to
Yeah,
yeah,
because
they
they
lost to Vegas in the second round.
yeah. So here's the thing. I think this is a good trade for both teams, good return for both teams. Big shout out Billy G. He's swinging for the fences. Now we have to quantify this and say what makes this trade successful for both teams. Like, how is this going to be defined as like this trade worked? Because there's different parameters for both teams. Obviously, Minnesota's in a state where they can compete for a championship. Vancouver isn't. So let's talk about the Minnesota parameters around this trade first. And I agree with you. Best goalie tandem in the league. Jesper Wallstedt is a clear Vezina winner at this point this season, unless he falls off a cliff. Everyone's locked in except two guys in Minnesota. They only have two guys to worry about that have contracts expiring coming up. They just re-signed Kirill. So Quinn Hughes obviously has an expiring contract, which they can't extend yet. You can only extend it, I believe, the summer, but July 1st of the year before the contract is up. And then that same year, Jesper Wallstedt's contract is up. All the money and the priority, in my opinion, has to be re-signing Jesper Wallstedt, especially if he continues this play throughout the next 2 years. If you need cap, maybe you do move Gustafsson instead of having two number one goalies. You can kind of leverage that a little bit. Big advantage to Minnesota is that under the new CBA, they're now the only team that can give Quinn an 8-year deal. So if he wants the stability of 8 years, that's huge for them. My thing with this though is we can't assume he's going to re-sign. I don't want to, we just have to look at it how it is right now. And if you're saying this trade is a successful trade because Minnesota's going to have playoff success, I hate to be that guy. It's not going to matter. They're going to be out in the first round because you're going to run into probably Dallas. Colorado's running away with it. Colorado's fine this year. They're going to run into the President's Trophy curse. But you got 2 years to win, and Dallas, man, they're looking good. They're looking real good, and Dallas has one thing that Minnesota doesn't. Well, two things. One, playoff experience, because Dallas has gone out of the first round consecutively each year. Last year, they lost in the conference finals. The other thing, too, Jason Robertson firing on all fucking cylinders right now. He is lighting it up. And then you also have depth. Like, yeah, they lost Tyler Seguin. Like, that sucks. They can still pick up a guy at the deadline. I think you're going to be in a world of hurt whichever team runs into Dallas in the first round. So, boom, you're out this round. first round, all the Minnesota fans are gonna be like, "Oh, we got Quinn Hughes." You're gonna be panicking now because you just made this trade and you're gonna be out in the first round. Then you go to next year, and who knows what's gonna happen next year? But you're still gonna have to contend with Vegas. You're still gonna have to contend with Dallas. You're still gonna have to contend with Colorado. I think Minnesota's in a really tricky spot because I think actually their easiest path to success would be losing a little bit and dropping down into a wild card spot. So their playoff path takes them through the Pacific instead of having to play Dallas in the first round. However, on paper, their team's just looking at them right now. I think they're too good to drop into a wild card spot. They're too good to lose those games without injury. So I hate to say it, Minnesota, but enjoy being out in the first round these next 2 years, and we'll see who resigns in Minnesota then.
As a Canucks fan, I'm very much hoping that Minnesota is out in the first round because that makes the first round pick we got much more valuable than if they go deep into the playoffs. But yeah, the burden of worrying about Quinn Hughes has now been passed. That is going to be at the forefront of every Minnesota Wild fan, every Minnesota Wild player, person in the organization. That is now focus number one, is finding a way to get pen to paper for him. Because if you traded all those guys, basically four first rounders, as you said, to the Canucks, and you aren't able to keep Quinn, then that's an abject failure. I think Billy Guerin has pretty much fully put the um his legacy as Wild GM, potentially his future as Wild GM on the back of this trade because if they're not able to get Quinn to re-sign. Now that being said, I guess they could flip him next year if it doesn't look like he wants to sign for a playoff run, but that's going to be
Yeah, but that defeats the purpose because if you're in win now mode, if you're Minnesota, so what better rental would you have than Quinn Hughes?
right. But if they could, yeah, if they could get like a sign and trade maybe next year for him, but that's down the line. We'll see. We'll see what happens going next year. That's just all speculation, but yeah, it's a ballsy move. You got to give Bill Guerin credit for that. And really, without making this trade, I think everybody knew who the top two teams were in that division, and the Wild were in a tough spot because they're too good, like we were saying, to find a way to get good draft picks, high draft picks, and vault yourself into that contention through the draft. And they weren't good enough to compete with those two teams, so they had to do something. And I
And
give I give Bill Guerin credit for grabbing his nuts and pulling off a big one.
yeah, they have no prospect pool right now. Like if the two worst teams in the AHL are the Iowa Wild and the Abbotsford Canucks. One of them is in Iowa, it's because they have no prospect pool, and in Abbotsford, it's because all their prospects are playing on the NHL team because everyone's injured up in Vancouver, right? So like, yeah, and it's but your parameters. So your parameters for defining success or failure through this trade aren't for Minnesota aren't necessarily do they win. What you're saying is this comes down to does Quinn Hughes play more than a season and a half in Minnesota is what are the parameters of a successful trade are for you.
Absolutely, yeah. Because if really you want to give yourself as many kicks at the can as possible, right? Winning the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's never a guaranteed bet. You never know what's going to happen. So it's kind of the same as drafting. Like if you're in that mode, you want to have as many kicks at the can as you can get, as many chances. And you're hoping that maybe one of those hits. So if they're not able to retain him, then I mean, you traded away a lot of current and future franchise assets to do it. And if he doesn't resign, I think abjectly it's a failure. But I think they'd tell you that too. I think Bill Guerin would say that. They know that. They knew that going in. So it'll be
Yeah.
really interesting to see how it plays out over the next year and a half.
Yeah. And like good news, I don't think they've leveraged too much of the future in Minnesota because like Olgren looked terrible on the Wild. He wasn't getting opportunities there, which is fine. Rossi, he's a good second, third line center. He'd been dealing with his injury, so who knows how his career is going to play out. Zeev is the future that you leverage in this trade because even the first round pick, it could have been a very low first round pick. So we don't know. Good on Billy G. He's swinging for the fences. He's saying, "I see a window to win. We're going for it." At least he's committed to a direction. He's not lost in outer space. So full respect to Billy G. So now we're gonna get to my take on the Canucks side of things. And so I have two questions for you. First, we defined the parameters around what makes a successful trade for the Wild. We said winning slash or in your case, Quinn re-signing. What makes this a successful trade for Vancouver? Like, what do you need to see? Not necessarily specifically out of Rossi, Zeev, and Ogren, but just out of the organization as a whole. What would you say makes this? You know what? Yeah, that trade was worth it.
I think we need to be able in a couple of years to look back at the trade and say that moving Quinn Hughes was without a doubt the announcement of a rebuild. It cannot be a retool because there's no core in place anymore to try and retool and put supporting cast around. It needs to be um, the sign that we're building for the future and we are going to do everything we can to accumulate assets and hope that those assets will marinate and eventually contribute to the next great Canucks team. I think that's the only real path forward that can guarantee you any level of success is tearing it down. And I think they have to realize that at this point. So for me to call this trade a success, yeah, it has to. This has to be the spark and the start of a new era for the Canucks, one that is filled with a lot of young players, a lot of trading veterans for draft picks, and letting those players play and get reps. No matter how many games you're going to lose or win, you just need to let them figure it out and give them all the reps that they need to become successful NHL players and hopefully elite NHL players. We're currently in 32nd place. I don't think, regardless of, I mean, okay, they won the first two games after the trade. They're still in 32nd place, so I'm not too worried about this team going on an 8, 9, 10 game heater and taking themselves out of contention for a top three pick.
I wouldn't be worried about that either.
Exactly. I'm not. So it just needs for this to be a success, they need to keep the first round pick that they just traded for with Minnesota. They need to continue down this direction, move guys like Sherwood, move Vander Kane if you can, move Teddy Bluger once he gets healthy, maybe Garland. I agree with you. You need to keep some of the veterans because you can't just have a locker room full of young guys that just lose constantly because that can be very detrimental to morale and can definitely extend your window of futility. But yeah,
That's why I like Marcus Pettersson so much, just coming from like an environment in Pittsburgh, because like and like Brock's a good it's a good sentiment to have Brock around. Like he just signed a new contract, he committed long term to the city. So that's always a good uh guy to have in the locker room, somebody who wants to be here. And plus he showed loyalty to the organization by signing that deal. So you have to show loyalty back to him and be like, okay, your spot's secured despite of a rebuild.
I think Brock will be announced as the captain next year. I don't think they're going to name one for the rest of this season, but he's the longest tenured player. Like you said, he committed to this team. He wants to be here. I think it, like you said, it's great for vibes having him around. He's a great role model from everything you hear, just a great person. And yeah, a good guy to have around. So you want to keep. I mean, Myers is going to be here for the rest of his contract. We can talk about his play all you want, but he's serviceable and
I
he's a
wasn't gonna
good
bring
vet.
him up this time. I wasn't gonna bring him
Yeah,
up. There's
yeah.
other.
No,
I have a list of fish to fry here,
okay,
and
okay.
there's one name on that list which I'm kind of trying to steer you in that direction.
Hmm.
But Tyler Myers wasn't that name.
Fair enough. But yeah, so you got to keep a couple of those guys around so that the young guys have pros to look at and an example to follow in that sense. But yeah, long story
So
long, they just need to continue down this path and commit to getting better through the draft, no matter how many losses it takes.
so going into next year, because I have an answer to this. Are you comfortable with two-thirds of the Led Zeppelin era being in management next year? Because there's really two parts to a rebuild. There's that your president and your GM, which put the pieces in place, they construct the roster, and there's your coaching staff that has to develop a roster of young players and try and keep morale as high as possible when you're likely losing. So if we look at the office, the front office side of that, are you comfortable with Jim and Patrick going into next season in those positions? As of right now, like obviously it'll depend on the moves they make throughout the rest of the year, but like as of right now.
I would say right now, yes, mostly because of Rutherford. He's, I mean, he's won cups. He's very much a veteran or I guess not a GM right now, but he's a veteran. man managerial force. I fucked that up, but whatever. He's been around a long time.
He's a veteran front office presence, is
Exactly,
what we'll call
exactly.
him.
Took the words out of the back of my brain that I couldn't get to the front of it. Yeah, so right now, I would say before the Quinn Hughes trade, I was much more up in the air on that. But seeing what they were able to get in return, I think, yes, I'm okay with them being here, at least for the start of the rebuild. Like you said, we'll see what happens going forward and what else they can manage to acquire. But if they can just hold firm right now, keep the assets that they've acquired and add some more, then yes, I'm comfortable with them going forward doing it. Um, yeah, that's all subject to change based on future moves that they make. But
Okay, good. So me too. I am comfortable with both of those guys going into next season. The only thing that actually makes me a little nervous, the little amber warning light in my mind is how they handled the Puig Suter situation because they knew they needed a center and they had one and they chose not to re-sign him, which is a little unfortunate. But like aside from that, fairly happy with their managerial direction that they're trending, right? Like fairly okay with that. So like I'm of the same mindset. Those are the two guys out going into at least next season. We'll see how it goes. Jim Rutherford's a winner. In my mind, here's where we put the fish on the Barbie, or the we can call it we put the shrimp on the Barbie for all our Australian listeners. I think you need to fire Adam Foote
at what point?
as soon as possible. Maybe
Really?
not as soon as possible, as soon as you find a replacement. Like if you're like, yeah, as soon as there's a coach on the market and you say this is the coach we want going into our rebuild, maybe don't fire him now if you don't have a next guy in line. I don't know if it's going to be Manny or if they're going to look outside of the organization. If it is Manny, fire him right now because the Abbotsford Canucks, they're just losing. So there's no point in keeping Manny down there. Have Manny around the players that you're going to have in this organization for as long as possible. Have him get as familiar as possible. If you're not going the Manny Mohotra route, then wait until you have a suitable replacement. But you have to fire Adam Foote, in my opinion. Like somebody's has to take a little bit of a fall and a little bit of a culture reset here. And to me, it's Adam. And I say that for two reasons. One, first reason, just simply because he was selected as the coach on the basis of he led the defense that Quinn Hughes played under. And I guarantee you, I haven't heard any reports if they straight up asked Quinn, who do you want our coach to be? But I guarantee you that conversation happened. Now that Quinn's gone, that is irrelevant, right? Like he got the job on the merit of Quinn Hughes, who is no longer there, right? Second thing, some of these roster decisions with their lineup are absolutely abysmal. Like, I hate their lines. They had Archie Baines playing on the second line. Are you fucking kidding me? They just had to waive him. Not a single team picked him up. Nobody wants him. Why is he playing on your second line? Like, I understand he's injured. Atu Ratu is a healthy scratch. Yeah, like I get it. He's not putting up points. Neither is David Kampf, and Atu Ratu is arguably their best center in a face-off. Maybe not the best center defensively because Pettersson's been playing out of his mind defensively. He looks like a Selke winner out of nowhere this year. But like Atu may be their most consistent defensive center. And I hate for a winger, doesn't matter as much, but I hate to say it. If you're a center, defensive faceoffs are a huge part of your game. I don't know if they're trying to lose on purpose. I don't know if they told them, hey, we really need this rebuild to happen. Please have us finish in 32nd. Do whatever you can to get us to finish last so we have the best chances at the first pick. I think Adam Foote has made abysmal lineup decisions. He's been terrible. Let's get him out of here, is my opinion. I'd fire him.
So actually, because of all the exact same things you just said, I'm on team retain Adam Foote for the rest of this year because I'm on team tank. And everything you just said, that's contributing to losses, which I want to see continue to pile up. And I do think Manny Malhotra is the next guy in line. I don't think he would have signed on to continue to be the Abbey Canucks head coach if there wasn't at least somewhat of a handshake deal that if things didn't work out with Adam Foote, that he was going to be the next guy in line. I think most of the fan base was expecting Malhotra to get hired for the start of this season. And based on what's happened, I'm happy he didn't because I do think Manny is a really good coach and he's worked with a lot of the young guys currently on the Canucks roster already. He knows them, has a relationship with them, and I I think this will be Adam Foote's only season as the Vancouver Canucks head coach based on what's happened. He wasn't exactly dealt a great hand with the roster that he was given.
He's been
Uh,
terrible with it though. Like he dealt, it's like if you have a losing hand and you know you're bluffing in poker, but you just keep throwing money in the pot even though you're gonna lose. It's like, dude, just fucking fold and then wait till the next hand, you know?
right,
Like
right.
he's
But
been
that, but that's what.
terrible.
But so firing Adam Foote, the goal of that would be to improve things, right?
Well, that's why I said if you know what who your replacement is, right? Because like if your replacement is Manny, I would want him ingratiated with as many of the players as possible for the longest period of time possible. That being said, I do understand your point. Like the goal right now for Vancouver is to lose, and maybe keep Manny down there. And the other advantage he has is because half of the Canucks roster right now, or at least with the forwards, is an AHL roster. You made a very good point. They are very familiar with Manny already. He did coach most of them in Abbotsford. So now that you say it out loud, if Manny's the guy, yeah, maybe you do keep Adam Foote for the rest of the season and just hope that the players don't mind struggling through it. But as long as you're cool with firing Adam Foote in the offseason, let's get him out of here. Let's get a new coach for next season. I think you're right. You had a good point with the losing and the him already coaching a lot of those forwards. Manny, that is. So yeah, thinking about it, you're right. We're gonna keep Adam Foote till the end of the season, and then as soon as game 82 hits the next day, we're firing him.
Appreciate that. No, yeah, yeah. If the goal was to try and turn things around, bright, get a little bit of sun in there, then I'm with you. Overall, I am with you. I don't think Adam Foote is the coach of the future or the coach to take this team forward. But yeah, I think in the team's had a lot of turnover recently, a lot of bad shit going down in the advent of continuity. I say just keep them for the rest of the season. Let the guys keep doing what they're doing. They're not going to win many games going forward, which is the best thing for us. And then yeah, maybe we'll give them a couple days after the season. Let it digest, and then
No, I'd fire him the day after. Let's get it reset. Because the thing too, they do need to commit to a long-term coach at some point. Because like Bruce, they shelled after a year basically, and then like Tocchet, obviously, it wasn't their choice to have him leave. He chose not to be part of the organization, which turns out to be a good choice on his end. But if Adams only getting 1 year, which hopefully he is, because he's a terrible coach from an NHL standpoint, um, then I would hope that whoever is coaching the Vancouver Canucks next, whether it's Manny or somebody else, is there for a little bit of a longer tenure than like 1 season or a season and a half.
yep, absolutely. And I think if they hire Manny, that it is going to, the expectations will be very different for how the team needs to perform and what they want out of him. I think he'll be given more of a grace period of like, we're building this team up. We know it's not going to be a playoff or a cup contender next couple of years, so he'll have kind of that weight off his back. But yeah, I guess that's really everything that I wanted to cover
I
with the
mean,
Canucks.
yeah, I agree. I think we can move on to some other happenings around the league. We
Yeah,
only have two.
we've been going pretty long. Do we maybe just want to roll through some just some other quick transactions and injuries and then wrap
Yeah,
up?
I mean, there's only two I can think of. There's the. Do you think we can get it done in the timer? Do you got the timer on yours?
I think we can do it. Well, let's challenge ourselves.
Okay, I
Pretend we're
mean,
live on the air.
yeah, if we can't do it, we can get into something else. There's only really two things I want to talk about. First thing is right on the screen in front of us. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers and the Pittsburgh Penguins have also made a trade. Edmonton Oilers actually made two trades. They gave up Stuart Skinner and Brett Kulak, which I completely understand why you give up Stuart Skinner. I've been saying since the beginning of the season that I was appalled that they went into the season with Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard. By the way, I was watching Empty Netters, and not about Calvin Pickard, but Chris on Empty Netters podcast used the exact same phrase, the exact same figure of speech I directed towards Calvin Pickard. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that talks about shooting things as a figure of speech.
Glad that apology was
So,
sincere.
so yeah. So to all you Oilers fans, it's a tough sport. Suck it up. Grow a pair. Um, Anyways, um, I understand why you trade Brett Kulak. He's a free agent. Like he was probably you're not re-signing him at this point. You've also shelled out a lot of money into your defense in the form of Matthias Ekholm and Jake Wallman. anyone but Stuart Skinner makes you better. You also did a separate trade for Spencer Stastny, so that kind of shores up your blue line in that regard. You ship out a defenseman, you get another defenseman back in. From an Edmonton trade or an Edmonton perspective, I absolutely like this trade. Get Stuart Skinner the fuck out of there, and maybe you can win a cup. From a Pittsburgh perspective, I really don't get it. Like, yeah, you have Archer Seelovs, who's a younger goalie, champion in the AHL. Seelov's numbers are not good this year, and Jari's weren't great, but at least Jari's were like somewhat, close to an NHL starter. But Seelovs has struggled this year. He had a really good start to the season, but the longer it's gone on, he's had a bit of a rough time.
Yeah, personally, I understand needing to get off Skinner and maybe just the vibes and changing it in any respect is good for them, but I do see it as a bit of a lateral move. I don't think Jari his numbers are better this year, but I mean he was on waivers not that long ago, and nobody claimed him. The contract's way bigger than Skinner, and yeah, I don't really know how much it improves Edmonton other than the standpoint of they're not going in knowing that they have the worst goalie in the game every single game.
Yeah, like I think I agree. Like Jari he's had some nervous times. I think anything just for the reset, and you have a 3 season window now to win a Stanley Cup with Connor McDavid, and obviously you weren't able to get it done with Stuart Skinner. So any sort of reset I think is good for that team as long as numbers wise you're not moving in a backwards direction, which lucky for them, there's really only two goalies in the league that would have moved them in a backwards direction from Stuart Skinner, one of them being Samuel Montembeault, and the other one being Calvin Pickard, who they already have. So, um, and but the thing that may be good with Tristan Jarry, this may be a little bit of a revitalization for his career because he was an Edmonton Oil King for juniors, and he's very familiar with the city. Um, Apparently he loves playing there. So I'm sure he's happy from like a personal perspective to be back in Canada and playing in Edmonton. So that may be a really good, um, I guess, motivator for his career if playing with Connor McDavid it wasn't motivator enough. So I'm excited to see how he'll do. I think it'd be really funny if it was a Pittsburgh Edmonton Cup final and Pittsburgh won the cup with Stuart Skinner. I think that'd be hilarious. But in a previous episode, I said Pittsburgh has no chance of winning a cup, and unfortunately, I think this trade lowers their chances even more.
Yeah, don't have too much more to add. It definitely is an upgrade in goal. Uh, Not sure how much of an upgrade. I guess we'll see. But for Pittsburgh, I mean, they get Kulak, who's going to help the defense. Like you said, a Skinner Seelovs tandem is very reminiscent of a Skinner Pickard tandem. So that might be tough going forward. But yeah, all in all, I guess I wish no, I wish Jarry luck because he's from Surrey, BC, but I don't wish him luck because it's with the Edmonton Oilers. So
That's okay. You don't have to worry about playing him in the playoffs, anyways.
yeah,
One
that's
of
true.
you, one of the teams will get there, the other one won't, and the
That's
other one doesn't want to. You don't want to play him in the playoffs, so he can have all the luck this season.
right. True.
Um,
I guess the only
hopefully,
other
hopefully he has great luck against Vancouver because they need
true,
to lose.
true enough. Good point. Good point. Yeah, the only other big thing, really that I can think of is Bedard getting injured.
Oh, we
Before
can talk
Christmas.
about Bedard. I got something else, but we can talk about Bedard too super quick. I don't
Yeah.
have much to say about Bedard other than that he's injured. Like he probably doesn't make Team Canada now, is
See,
my thought on that.
I think I still would put him on the team because you can replace guys for injury, and I believe he's expected back mid-January. So, but just a what a brutal way to get injured. There's like 2 seconds left in the game. It's a freak face-off play. You get injured on that one out of every million times that you're taking a face-off. So that was brutal to see. I hope it doesn't impact his Olympic standing because I think he has earned his way onto the roster. So
Yeah, Celebrini, yes, Bedard, I'm still 50-50 on, not from his production standpoint, but from his like without the puck standpoint. But I think this hurts his chances, to be honest, of getting on the team just from a pure selection process, because all the other guys that are healthy, you're gonna see their current form, where Bedard you're not going to see his current form coming off the injury when selection time comes.
Right. Yeah. Well,
The other two things I have, just going to do a quick shout. Going to throw it out there that the Vancouver Whitecaps, this isn't huge news, but the Vancouver Whitecaps has entered in negotiations for 2026 with the city of Vancouver to get a new deal. Sorry, Ethan just broke some breaking news to us, which we'll get to in a second, which we'll have to talk about. Wow, that was interesting. Okay, super quick. Whitecaps, new deal. They want to build a stadium at Hastings Park, which I think the funny thing is, as my suggestion was to put a baseball stadium at Hastings Park if the MLB wanted to expand. Now, if there's going to be a soccer stadium there, they can't do that. So that may make it harder for the MLB to come to Vancouver, but that's okay because baseball's not a sport. Anyways, Jude, do you want to talk about the breaking news we just got from Ethan?
well, interesting timing on this. We have just learned that Tristan Jarry has left the game against the Oilers with, looking at the play, I would guess is a lower body injury of some kind.
He has not left the game against the Oilers. He is on the Oilers.
My
Just a
bad.
quick shout there.
That's what I said. Yeah, so he's left the game against, looks like Boston there, with what looks like a lower body injury. Oilers are gonna oil. That's hilarious. I hope he's not like seriously hurt because
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not hilarious because he's injured, but it's hilarious because it's Edmonton, and now
yes,
your starting goalie is Calvin Pickard, who is
exactly.
the worst goalie in the league this year.
All roads lead back to Calvin Pickard, seemingly for the Oilers. But yeah, obviously, I hope Jari, it's not a serious injury. It is. It's not funny, ha ha. It's funny, like ironic, like wow, I can't believe this is happening to the Oilers. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, I guess jumping back to your Whitecaps point, that's good. I hope they don't leave. If it was build a baseball stadium and get a baseball team, an MLB team, or keep the Whitecaps, I'm saying sayonara to the Whitecaps real quick. Baseball team here would
Wow.
so fired up, but
I
seeing
think
as
there's a
that's not
bigger
going to happen,
market probably for soccer than
I
baseball here.
think that's not even close to true. Dude,
Really?
think about
Even
all
with
the Blue
even
Jays
if with the
fans.
World Cup coming and everything, that's gonna all the attraction and the attention that's gonna draw to build the game.
Uh, no, if you're comparing the MLS to the MLB, one of them is one of the four major leagues in North America. There's so much, like, think about the
In the
Blue Jays run.
States, in
Dude,
Canada, do we care in Canada?
think about what just happened in the Blue Jays run. The entire country was watching the whole time.
Yeah, there's only one team in Canada. That just kind of shows what kind of market
Exactly.
there is.
Imagine there was two.
I don't know about that, my friend, because I feel like it's all based off of winning, right? Like how many baseball? I haven't watched a lot of baseball games, but I watch Sportsnet, okay? And I see highlights of these ballparks being like half empty half the time, right? Like, and one thing we've learned about Vancouver up until very recently with the Whitecaps' new ownership group, Vancouver sports owners are very reluctant to spend money. In baseball, to have a successful team, there's no salary cap. So you have to spend a ridiculous amount of money to have a successful team. I think LA had the highest payroll. I think Blue Jays were top five, I believe, and they're the two teams in the World Series. History shows up until this season, bringing over Thomas Mueller with the Vancouver Whitecaps, which was under a new ownership group, which still may change over hands if they can't figure out a stadium, or even if they do figure out a stadium, they may sell the team. Um, Vancouver owners have been very reluctant to invest financially in their sports franchises.
Very valid points, everything you just said. The MLB is coming up on a CBA negotiations, and the biggest topic of contention is definitely going to be a salary cap. The players don't want it. I think most of the owners do want it because there's only a handful, like you're saying, that can spend the absolute big bucks that it takes to compete. So I do think there's at least going to be some change to the system, whether that's a salary floor or a salary cap, like both of them being brought in, we will see. And to be clear, I don't want the Whitecaps to leave. Okay, but I'm not like I was happy for them to have success this year. Obviously, I want any Vancouver franchise to have success, but I think bringing in any, like, if it was a basketball team or a baseball team, or this would never happen, but a football team, I think all those sports are much more um, digestible easily for North American market, just based on how long those sports have been here and been big. And you see when the
Baseball
Blue
hasn't
Jays,
been big here though. Like there's
Dude, you might be insulated on this, but it is like when the Blue Jays go to Seattle, the entire stadium is filled up with Blue Jays fans. Like there's a lot of people that care about baseball, right?
sure. So like, here's my take on that, right? So like for one series, so what's that, like 4 games, right? They're in Seattle.
Yeah, 3, 4.
Yeah, 3, 4 games they're in Seattle. That's their only opportunity to see them with minimal travel, right? Like 2, 3 hour drive to Seattle, depending on how the border is and like traffic and shit, right? There's what, 162 games in a baseball season? So that's 4 games. You need to fill out 81 games. You can't even fill a Canucks stadium for 81 games, right?
Oh,
Like,
but like you're
and
saying,
like, so here's the thing. Like, if football, I agree, football would be the biggest thing in the world because 17 game season, you're only getting 9 or 8 home games. Football would sell out every single time. NBA, absolutely. Huge basketball market. There's NBA preseason games that come up here. They play at Rogers, they play at Save On Foods. Um, on the island in Victoria, we have the infrastructure already. We've had the Grizzlies, right? Like 100% agree with basketball. Baseball is kind of where I draw the line because I also think of our demographic, right? And Vancouver is a very, and the greater Vancouver area is a very heavy city population wise when it comes to immigration and first generation Canadians, right? So like there's a lot of people coming from all different parts of the world where baseball isn't uh, a big market in most of those countries. Like when I think baseball, I think Japan, huge. There's a big Japanese community in the greater Vancouver area, awesome. But you also get a lot of people from South America. You also get a lot of people coming in from Africa, a lot of people coming in from the Middle East, India, the rest of Southeast Asia. There's not big baseball markets for in the countries where you're seeing the largest part of our population growth. Where guess what there is a market for in most of those countries? Soccer.
right.
Like every single like Japan's like a top 25 national team in soccer. So like yeah, they're huge in baseball. There's a big soccer fan base there too. Anywhere from South America and Africa, they're going to prioritize soccer over baseball. Middle East, most of the time they're going to prioritize soccer. The only country I can think of that there's a large population of people moving to the greater Vancouver area is India, where soccer's not that huge in India either. But like neither is baseball. Like neither sport really is. So I just think if you extrapolated this over a full season, not just taking into account one series when the Blue Jays come to town once a year, I think you're going to have a lot of trouble filling the seats unless that team is a championship contender.
I will make my retort quick in the advent of time. Just want to point out Ethan was on my side. Shout out Ethan.
Yeah, Ethan's dumb. That's why he doesn't
Most
talk on here.
most people, I agree, there's tons of immigration going on. Most people from here or that live in Vancouver are still from Vancouver, where the Whitecaps can get as big as they want to. The MLS is never going to be the top soccer league in the world, whereas the MLB is unquestionably the biggest baseball league in the world. So, either way, I would like to see it happen and
I
see which of us is right. But
yeah,
I think baseball is bigger, uh, nationally, domestically, and worldwide than you think. But yeah, anyways.
it's probably bigger worldwide. It's probably bigger than I think. Is it bigger than I think enough that it can compete with soccer? Probably not, but we're never going to have an answer to this conversation unless something actually plays out. So, how about all of our listeners and viewers? Um, tell us what you think. Would you rather have an MLB team in Vancouver or would you rather have a new Whitecap Stadium at Hastings Park? Let us know. Uh,
Poll
the last
question.
last thing I want to just let us know. Last thing I want to bring up, the Buffalo Sabres went from one really bad GM to another really bad GM.
Yeah, I think
That's very
everybody saw
Buffalo.
that. I think everybody saw that one coming. He'd been in the organization for 6 months as an advisor. Kevin Adams was on borrowed time, and Buffalo's going to Buffalo. So I expect to see them in the draft lottery once again next year.
I'm kind of shocked to have Kevin Adams gone before Lindy Ruff, to be honest. I thought the Lindy hire was just basically a scapegoat so they could fire someone. I didn't think it'd be Kevin Adams that would be getting fired. Um, I don't really understand the Jarmo Kekalainen hiring, to be honest. I thought he did a really bad job in Columbus, and like I don't really like he didn't do a good job at rebuilding that team. I don't really know why he's in Buffalo now because like I don't think he's going to do a good job rebuilding Buffalo either. It's like that one all in all, like that's confusing. Like this
Yeah.
seems like the most Buffalo thing in the world to go from a guy who all he did was lose to another guy to all he did was lose. Like
Well,
they had one playoff series upset against Tampa. Awesome. What do you have to show for it? Like nothing. Columbus is last
but
in the Metro right now.
yeah, like he's the most successful GM in Blue Jackets history. Like
That's not saying a whole lot though.
well, sure, but I mean, it's not really a place like they weren't super set up for success, and they did have like yeah, they weren't cup contenders, but they were making the playoffs at least. And I think most GMs, if they've shown any sign of competence in their first go round, tend to do better in the second opportunity. They have time to kind of look back on things, what they do differently. And I heard Elliot say that Buffalo, I believe this is only the second or third GM that they've hired in the history of the team where it wasn't his first time being a GM. So I think that in itself kind of maybe will help them out. And if anything, you can't get worse.
That's true, but I think there's just got to be more viable options out there. And like, yeah, they almost we'll say we'll give it to them. They made the playoffs just under 50% of the time with Columbus, but like they won one round, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not good enough, man. Like especially if you're trying to win. And I get it, Buffalo's just trying to scratch the surface of making the playoffs, but he's not a winner. It's proven, and like I feel like you need a guts. I don't like it. I think it was. You're going from one bad GM to another. That's just me. The viewers can tell us their thought on it, but I would have hoped they would have held out for somebody else.
Sure. I'm out of stuff.
Yeah, that's all I got. A little torching baseball, torching Adam Oates, or not Adam Oates, Adam Foote. We like Adam Oates, good player. Torching Adam Foote, torching Yarmo. I think I'm out of people to pick fights with.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in and watching. I know we've run pretty long these last two episodes, so hopefully we got some people with good attention spans. Thank you, Ethan, for hanging in there.
Or
Uh,
if you're a Columbus fan, if you, I don't know if people know this, but if they go on our Apple Podcast and the Spotify, you can actually select which chapter of our discussion you would like to listen to. Hopefully, you listen to the full thing. But if you're into baseball or the Whitecaps or Jarmo Kekalainen, go click on your preferred chapter and listen to that part.
yeah, yeah, there you go. So all in all, thank you everybody for tuning in. Make sure to let us know if you prefer soccer or baseball in the city, and yeah, let us know what you think of the Quinn Hughes trade, how the Canucks did.
See you guys later.